Since 1886, cars have been changing how we live our lives decade after decade. However, in the last couple of decades, there has been an aspect of owning these wonderful devices which has created a major economical problem around the world. Yes, I'm talking about the auto loan bubble. A car was intended just to be a quicker and more efficient means of transportation. But as technology has advanced, the features increased, which increases the prices. There is nothing wrong with technological advances. However, our paychecks haven't been able to keep up with the continuously increasing cost of car ownership. And that's why about 81% of us who were getting a new car chose to finance it in the last year of 2022. So in order to figure out what's the true cost of financing a car and how it will cost you millions, we gotta look into it a bit deeper than that. Because it might sound like, oh, what's wrong with financing? And still nearly 20% of us are not financing. So that doesn't sound that bad, right? But in short, the problem actually is bad, because now the total auto loans in America are adding up to just over $1.55 trillion, and it's increasing every day. I know it's a massive number, so let's look into an example to understand the problem and potentially find some solutions. This is John. John is 25 and thinks this is the perfect time for him to get a car. He is smart and didn't listen to the societal norms of getting a new one and ended up shopping at a local used car dealership. He takes his time, shops around, compares some models and brands he likes. And after deciding on something he liked, he was told that the car can be his on only a small bi-weekly payment of $243, or in other words, $526 a month, which actually is the average used car payment in America for 2022. As soon as John heard that number, he knew that he could afford it, because $243 doesn't sound that bad. So if any one of you have ever tried to shop for a car, I think you can relate to that thought. I know I have been guilty to do the same. From that number, it's tough to think of the true cost of financing that car, as it includes not only the typical costs like taxes, but also total interest of the loan, which some dealerships might also call cost of financing, which basically increases the overall price, but is told to you in small monthly payments so that it doesn't look overwhelming. And that's how we think that a car is a lot more affordable than it actually is. Other than the purchase price of your vehicle, there are two other things which can decide what your payments will be: the interest rate you get and the length of your loan. The rate on any given auto loan is usually made up of two things: the federal rate at that moment and a rate based on your credit score. So far this year, we all have seen how consistently brutal these federal rate hikes can be, and that's something which is not in our control. But on the other hand, the credit score is something we can work on. Your credit score can have a huge impact on your car payments, as a low credit score can increase your interest up to 4 times, which means on a $30,000 car loan for which someone could be paying $569 a month, you can end up paying up to $818 a month for the same amount. Other part was the length of the loan. This is something which can be customized based on how much you can afford, but usually dealerships like to go for a longer loan because that will make your payments the smallest and sound a lot more affordable. But it's working against you, as you're just left with a payment for years and years more than you should have. And the dealerships are winning in this game, as the average length of an auto loan is nearly 6 years now. A lot can happen in these 6 years, like an average new car which was $30,000 when you bought it, just after 5 years could be worth 60% less at only $12,530. That's just the reality of auto loans today. So in my opinion, the way to look at the true cost of having that monthly payment is by thinking what's the best financial use of that $526 a month. For example, simply investing in the stock market could be a good option. I think most of us have heard of the S&P 500, but if you haven't, it's just a group of the largest 500 companies on the US stock markets. And how these companies do on the stock market is basically considered an average market return, as this thing has been around for about 100 years now. And since 1928, with all the ups and downs, wars and recessions, it has made investors about 9.82% per year. So I think it's a decent assumption that it will continue to do the same in the coming years. Now imagine our John, instead of getting that car, consistently invests in the market the same amount every year, no increase in it whatsoever till the average age of retirement. At retirement, he will have just over $2.85 million, which will give him a solid consistent income of $114,000 every year to live on for the rest of his life. Let that number sink in for a minute. Think of these two scenarios you have here. Either you get a car which will be rusty and old in 10 years, and on the other hand, you can become a multimillionaire making $114,000 completely on passive mode every year. Imagine getting up late, binging Netflix, knowing that at the end of the day, no matter what you do, you're guaranteed to get paid $312 without lifting a finger. What a life that would be. Now this all sounds really appealing, but it relies on a big assumption that John was able to invest 100% of that car payment every month, which basically means that he didn't need a car or already have one. And we know with our current lifestyles and jobs, not having a car is not an option anymore. So here are some of my solutions to how we can get closer to making that $312 a month and to this overall financial problem and hopefully avoiding these car payments. First thing would be using public transportation. More and more Americans are living and moving into urban and major urban cities every year, and a good amount of these cities have a good public transportation system. Public transport is basically safer, cheaper, and better than cars for both the economy and the environment. And if you actually live in a city where you can bike, that's a bonus for your health as well. But on the flip side, this solution might not be for everyone, as almost half of Americans do not have access to public transport. And even if they have access, owning a car gives you a lot more freedom, which public transport just never can. So if owning the car is the only option, the easiest financial solution I can think of is to start small. Going for the best looking new car, which will not only cost you in a monthly payment, it will also reduce about 20% in the first year. That is just negatively hitting your pocket in both ways, as you are paying more for something which will be worth a lot less in just a year. So it's more financially smart, I think, to go for a smaller beater car, something which you can buy for cash. Now this is not something which you will need to drive till you retire or for long at all. This car probably will be only worth a couple of grand, and this would be something which can get you from point A to B. So in order to get the peace of mind of driving a stable and a reliable car, we can put some money aside till we have the cash to upgrade this beater into something better. Even if we used half of the average car payment amount every year to keep upgrading your car, just in a couple of years you will end up in a very reliable car, because at the end of the day, other than getting you from one place to another, a $15,000 used car, which is just a couple of years old, should have all the required features of a brand new car off the lot. And don't forget, you still have years worth of payments which you can use to upgrade and get you something fancy. And at the end, if you invest the rest of that 50% of the car payment, you will still be left with a decent $1.42 million. Now, some of you might be wondering that I already have a car payment. Did I buy too much of a car for myself? Now that is a great question, as there is an easy way to determine how much of a car you should buy based on your income. We can use something called as a 24-10 rule. It's basically a rule of thumb which makes sure we are not overspending on cars, as these are not the purchases we make every day, but these can impact our coming years drastically. First aspect would be putting at least 20% down on the purchase. This down payment will reduce the overall borrowing amount, which means you will pay less interest while owning that car. Second part would be to make sure the loan doesn't increase more than 4 years. As we saw, an average length of the loan is closer to 6 years, so this will not only get your car paid off quicker, but you will also be paying interest for a shorter period of time. And at the end of your 4 years, your car would be worth a lot more than an average person who has a loan for 5 years or longer. And the last aspect is to make sure all costs of ownership is less than 10% of your pre-tax monthly income. So ideally, this 10% of your pre-tax income should not only cover the car payment, but also cover other ownership costs like gas, insurance, maintenance, and so on. Here are some examples of how much a 4-year car loan payment should be based on your income. Remember, this would be a loan where you've already put down 20% of the purchase price of the car. And here we can see the budget being 10 to 15% of your income, as some of your financial situation might allow you to go up to 15. However, I like to stick to the 10%, as it means that I have more left over to invest. Cars are such a small part of our lives, as we barely spend an hour a day in our cars, but the numbers don't lie. And as we have seen that these small parts can change our financial future. Hope this helped and that you liked the video. Consider subscribing, and thanks for watching.